Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight and welcome to our panel discussion. I have to say that we had a practice run last week, and after we were done, I personally felt insanely inspired. So I hope that you will too after tonight's session. My name is Isabelle, but everybody calls me Izzy. And I run a design studio by day, my own design studio, and by night I run this club with Ariane. And tonight I will be your host, obviously accompanied with Ariane. The Ottawa Design Club was supposed to be an in-person event, event series, but due to COVID, obviously, we all know what happened. We had to pivot, and now we're bringing you some online events instead, panels, workshop. We had our first international event last December with Marseille and Montreal, which was amazing. And we actually celebrated a birthday. We actually officially turned 1. And we were so busy promoting this event and the call for submission for the zine that we forgot to, not forgot, but we were just too busy doing all this. So we will catch up very soon to celebrate our first birthday. So stay tuned for that. We won't miss it. I won't miss a chance to celebrate.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ariane, and I'm a senior graphic designer by day at the University of Ottawa. And by night, you guessed it, I run the Ottawa Design Club with Isabelle. I also recently started my own very tiny Etsy shop, so I'm extra excited for tonight's event. Before we introduce our panelists and get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping Zoom rules with everybody. So just please stay on mute during the panel so that there's not any sound disturbing our panelists while we're talking. And you are free to turn on or turn off your camera as you please. If you're not already in speaker view, I encourage you to switch to speaker view in the top right corner so you can see the panelists a little bit better. But feel free to switch back and forth if you want to peek on your friends or say hello. Finally, the chat is open for everybody. As you can see, people are already talking. You can discuss in there as you please. We will be taking some questions at the end, your own questions, and you will be able to ask them in the chat or on camera if you want. And I think that's it for the housekeeping. So we'll get started. Tonight's event was inspired by questions we received from our community on how to get started selling creative work online or even in person. Since Izzy and I are not experts in the matter, we decided to put together a panel with 3 Ottawa creatives that we admire and that have been successfully running their own shop. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Fiona, Alex, and Rachel. I will let them introduce themselves and talk about their background a little bit, and we'll start with Fiona.
Thanks, Ariane. Hi, everyone. My name is Fiona. I'm the artist and founder of Anaya Arts. It's minimalist art inspired by representation. And it's been about 2 years that it's been, well, 2021 will be 3 years now, that I've been doing Anaya Arts as a business, but I've just always loved drawing ever since I was young. And it's just me finally finding my passion. I just kind of went back to what I loved doing as a kid, and it ended up being art, and everything just aligned itself, and that's what I'm doing right now.
Alex, do you want to?
Oh, sure. I'll go next. Hello, my name is Alex Finkeldey, and I'm a freelance illustrator based here in Ottawa. My business name is Scatterby Illustration and Design. I started my Instagram account in 2017, mostly for fun, it's kind of a way to reconnect with my art practice. I've been drawing my whole life, but I only ever really started taking it seriously when I started my Instagram account as a way to hold myself accountable. And I've been a full-time freelance illustrator since 2019. The type of work that I do is a combination of editorial work, and I also design and sell my own prints and accessories on my Etsy shop. I do private commissions, and Yeah, I draw a lot of animals. You might, if you follow me on Instagram, you know I draw a lot of cats particularly. Those are probably my favorite subject. But mainly the focus of my work is capturing a feeling of like coziness and nostalgia and just noticing the details of everyday life and nature.
And that leaves me. My name is Rachel. I'm a senior designer at Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform. And I've been there for about 5 years. And at Shopify, I do a lot of like promotional items. So like print, pins, apparel, all that. But also on the side, I do freelance illustration and quite a bit of brand design as well for smaller businesses. And I have been running a small shop that sells pins and prints, and I've been doing that for about 2 or 3 years.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And I want to start with our first question to kind of break the ice. Do you have a funny story related to like printmaking? And I'll start with Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny now because I can look back on it and laugh at it, but at the time it was a little bit anxiety inducing. But I think if there's a lot of like print designers here, like one of my biggest fears is sending something to print with a typo or a mistake on it. And it definitely happened to me. It happened to me at a fairly large event where I sent a name badge to print and it had a typo on it. And it's so funny because there's so many layers of like approvals and whatnot, and nobody caught it. And it wasn't until the day of the event, and like we were already like several hours in, someone pointed it out, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how do we never notice this? And it was at the time it was a little scary, but right now I can laugh at it, and you know what, like barely anybody noticed. So yeah, it's funny to look back on it now.
Yeah, very stressful in that moment, and sometimes it's right in front of you, and because you see it too often, sometimes you just forget, like not forget, but it just kind of passes by. What about you, Fiona?
Just like Rachel, it's funny now. It definitely wasn't funny at the time, but so I was picking up some large prints for my printer, and with larger prints they obviously roll them up, and I think I probably had like maybe 5 rolled up prints and a bunch of other stuff in my hands. And I'm the type of person who I will carry 10 grocery bags instead of just doing it like, 2 at a time. So of course I was carrying everything, and it's winter, and it's one of those days where it was like the slushy kind of snow, like the muddy, icky snow. And so I get to my car, and I've mastered the art of opening things with one hand, but clearly not. So open my car, and as I'm putting stuff in, at least 2 of the prints fell right into the snow slush. Ruined right away, like there's no trying to save that. And I was actually going to throw those into a tube and mail them the same day. They were actually customer prints.
Oh.
So yeah, just ran back to my printer, and of course they can't just print it in like 5 minutes because they're large and they have to cut them and the ink has to dry, and yeah. Funny now, but not funny at the time.
Yeah, you're like, next time I'll make 2 trips.
I'll make 3 if I have to.
Yeah. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, so this was in the early days of me kind of developing a relationship with my printer and learning how to print my designs. And I had designed a Father's Day card just to sell at markets and on my Etsy shop. And the design was like, the backdrop was like some mountains. It was very nature oriented. And then I had handwritten Happy Father's Day over it, but it was 2 separate layers in the file. And I guess I had just sent like the backdrop. So it just looked like black mountains with nothing on them. And I sent the order for like, 50 cards or something. And when I got them, of course, the order just has black mountains. It like something was clearly missing. To my eyes, I was like, this is an incomplete design. And I was like, there should be lettering on this. And they're like, no, well, the file just had the mountains. And I was like, oh man, like it was obviously my fault because I hadn't double checked the file that I sent, but that's something that can happen pretty often where, you could check and check and check, and then you'll send a file that's incomplete and they'll just print whatever you send them, even if it's quite obviously not a finished product. But It was fine. They didn't charge me or anything. They were wonderful to work with, but it was a funny time.
Yeah, that happens when you're trying to go too fast. For me anyway, like when I'm trying to go too fast, that's when it's like little mistakes like this. It's like, yeah, they're around like a day with a lot of deadlines. Yeah.
Definitely.
So why did you all start like doing printmaking and started your business or online shop? Like what was the motivator? And I'll start with you, Alex.
Yeah, sure. So I think I said in my introduction that I had started my Instagram account in 2017 as a way to kind of hold myself accountable to my art practice. So it's very vulnerable for me to put my work out there. And it was kind of a way for me to experiment a little bit, get some feedback on my work. And then a few months after starting my account, someone approached me about a commission. And up until that point, like I'd never sold my work before. I never even dreamed that somebody would be interested in purchasing my work. So I accepted the commission. It went really well. And then it kind of snowballed after that. Like I think this person had told their friends about the commission and, word got around that I was doing commissions. So it was at that point that I realized that there might actually be interest in some of my designs, not just for custom work, but for, home decor or accessories or that kind of thing. So fast forward a few months later, I had heard about some craft markets in the area and I had applied to one not thinking I was going to get in. It was more of like, I was treating it as like an experience for myself. I was like, well, we'll see I'll just kind of dip my toes in it, see what the experience is like. And then I was accepted. And that really like lit a fire because I was like, oh my gosh, I have to like deliver on all of these promises I made about, I sell prints, I sell cards. And like, I had a few designs, but not enough, I would say. So it really motivated me to start, brainstorming ideas. And so it was really that first craft market that got me into printmaking. And then kind of the rest was history. I ended up opening my Etsy shop about 6 or 7 months later as a way to sell my work online. But it was kind of just, you share your work, someone's interested in your work, they tell someone else, and then it went from there. So it was great. I was really lucky.
That's like a happy accident almost. Like that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of a similar story for you, Fiona, right?
Yeah. Just like Alex, I did start an Instagram account separate from my personal account because I wanted to hide behind my art. I was still very much art shy because I've only been drawing for myself and no other reason. So I created like an incognito Instagram account, started to post my art. And one of the followers, she's local, she's in Ottawa, and she was hosting an event, like a women's empowerment event or something. And a lot of my art, women are my inspiration and it's very empowering as well. So I guess she made the connection and she reached out. She's like, hey, I'm having this event. Could you please come and display your artwork? At that point, everything was online on the internet for me. I'd never even physically printed my artwork besides the originals. So for her to ask that and have me thinking beyond that, I was like, oh, wow, really? Okay. So the first printer I found, I made some copies, went to the event. I was not prepared whatsoever. So I literally just like stuck them on the wall with tape. I mean, I made it look nice and everything, but it was just so not organized whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the event, the speaker pointed out the artwork. And I guess people thought it was part of the space. But then when she pointed me out in the crowd after the event, I had a bunch of people just come towards me and start asking questions like, how much? What's your website? I had someone literally just like start opening their wall and they're like, oh, can I have that one off of the wall? And of course, I hadn't thought about pricing ever. So I started throwing out prices like, okay, yeah, $10, $15, sure, take it. I think I went home with $100 that night. But just being able to go home with $100 that I wasn't even trying to get, like I wasn't even trying to make, was super motivating, super encouraging. I was, or I still am, sort of like this shy girl, and I just hid behind my artwork. For that to happen at that event, it just lit a fire in me, and I guess it's just been it's just been great since then. It just kind of gave me that courage to just kind of slowly but surely put myself out there. And it sounds so cliche, but that's literally what it was. It was literally putting yourself out there. And then, as Alex said, the more eyes start to see it, people who are not your friends, people who are not your family, when it's just strangers on the internet validating your work, that's when you're like, okay, there definitely is something here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, isn't that the best validation, that you go just to go, and then it's like all this happened, and then it snowballs into something else, like way bigger than you even imagined.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And Rachel, I really like the why you started like doing what you're doing. Please share.
Snowballing. Oh my gosh. So I think I have a background in graphic design. That's what I do during the day. And like as I said, I work in an e-commerce company. So e-commerce is just around me all the time. And I'm just surrounded by a bunch of designers as well. So I think that was a big motivation for me, just like being surrounded by all that world at Shopify. And then actually, so a group of us designers started doing this illustration challenge. It was 100-day daily challenge, and we would just post illustrations every day. We would share it with each other, and I started posting it on my Instagram. And it's funny how all of us brought up Instagram, but I was getting a lot of comments just from random people, just being, oh, will you put this on a pillow? Like, can you put this on a print? Will you have this? And I was like, oh, like I was just doing this for fun. And then eventually I was like, maybe I should do something. So I started like looking, and I was like, maybe I'll do a print. And I was like thinking of things that I wanted to wear. I was like, oh, I've always wanted these pins, and I would search online for all these pins and prints, and I would spend hours just finding like the perfect print for my office, the perfect pin. And I was like, why don't I just make it? Instead of spend 5 hours trying to find an extremely specific gold pin, I'm just gonna do it. So eventually I was like, okay, I'm just gonna submit a pin. And then that's when I realized the minimum was 100. And I was like, okay, I have 99 pins. I guess I'm making a store. So that's how it started for me.
I love that.
I love that too. Also, the 100-day challenge, I think it's starting soon. It happens like on Instagram every year, and I feel like this is happening shortly. If ever that's something you're interested in, you should look it up. So opening an online shop can seem relatively easy from the outside, but most of us don't really know where to start. So in your opinion, where is a good place to start? And we'll start with Rachel again. Yeah,
sure. So I mean, I keep bringing this up that I work at Shopify, but it is very relevant because while I do have access to like quite a bit of like information about shipping, fulfillment, inventory, and whatnot. And I kept trying to ask people, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I ship this? And I kept making meetings with random people in the company and asking them questions. And you know, I still couldn't figure it out. And to this day, I still can't really figure out shipping. Shipping is a whole other beast. So like it's so much easier said than done, but you don't know it until you're actually in it. So like you just do it one step at a time. I was like, okay, I have a pin. I have 99 pins. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna take a photo of a pin. I'm like, oh, okay, I need a store. And like it eventually things come gradually and whatnot. And like as much information and like researching and asking this person, you truly don't really know until you're in it. So like I would just say like one step at a time. Like don't force yourself and like don't put pressure on yourself. It's still like very much a learning process.
Yes, it is. You can't really be ready, I think. What about you, Alex? Any tips on how to get started?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to echo everything that Rachel said and what you said, Ariane. Like, you're probably never going to feel 100% ready. At least I know I wasn't. And I know that a lot of people kind of share that sentiment because there's always going to be like a little bit of a leap that you take. You know, you might not know everything about shipping. I mean, who does, right? Like it's a very complex issue that we will touch on later. But yeah, like there's so many resources available online between like YouTube and Skillshare and even other artists on Instagram. There are a lot of people out there who are very generous with their time and their resources and energy in directing you on how to start a shop. And there are lots of different e-commerce platforms that you can select, and I think we'll be talking about that later as well. But as far as like my personal experience, I'll go back again to the first craft show that I did. I think that in-person experience, you know, me with my little table and like a few designs that I came up with, and like having people I didn't know come up and like physically interact with my work and give me feedback directly, was really encouraging. I mean, it was personally encouraging, but it was also like market research, right? Because you get a sense of, you know, at the end of the day, what sold, what didn't sell. You know, I got feedback about, you know, somebody liked a design on a print, and then they asked if it was available on a card, or is this available as a pin, or, you know, you can get a sense of the different applications for your work. So yeah, I've been really fortunate that a lot of in-person events has really helped me kind of come out of my shell, and also get a very like tangible sense of what works as a product or as a design.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Alex said, definitely the market and being able to be a vendor is a huge plus, because the internet is great, but the markets are even better because you're meeting the people and they're meeting you, the artist behind the work and the brand, and they're able to interact with you. You're able to actually see their reaction when they first lay eyes on your artwork. You know, you can see them from across the room just coming towards your table and being like, oh my God, I had to come say hi. And that just, that interaction in itself, and that little gesture right there, just again, I'm going to use the word validation. Like, it just really helps to physically see and feel the presence of others. And then again, as Alex said as well, just getting feedback too. You know, you go home at the end of the day and it's like, okay, I sold a lot of design A, but I didn't sell any of design C. Oh, I wonder why. And again, some people don't want wall art. You know, some people want it on a t-shirt. They wanted a pin, a pillow. So that's how I got into apparel, actually. Again, was not thinking about that. I'm not into fashion. I'm not a designer whatsoever, but I did get a lot of people asking if I had certain designs on a t-shirt, because they were like, you know what, I don't want to just hang it in my home and forget about it, or just not see it. I want to be able to wear it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a walking, talking billboard for me. So why not? And so I did t-shirts, I did hoodies, you know, just slap them in the front, put your logo somewhere, you call it a day. But I wasn't satisfied with that. I'm like, okay, that's so basic. I need to actually like design something with my art. So I ended up like creating 2 dresses and a bodysuit and a tote bag. So I dabbled into the apparel side of things, I guess. I call it wearable art. And that's all because of the feedback I got from customers and people I met at events. And yeah, so again, it's just a matter of trying something, and then out of that something, so much more will come out of it, whether it's you getting even more brave, whether it's people telling you, or whether it's just by chance.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait for those in-person markets to come back. So Fiona, you just talked about, you know, different products that you had and started doing apparel. I'm curious about, and also Rachel, you talked about your 99 pins. How do you manage inventory? Do you keep large inventory of prints, or do you produce as you go, like made to order kind of thing? Rachel?
So when I started off, I only had about 3 pin designs. So like, no, I didn't have a large inventory, just because I didn't know where to put it. I was in a 1-bedroom condo with my partner and 2 cats, and I was like, I don't have enough room for all this stuff. So I didn't have a large inventory, and I still wanted to figure out like how everything works. So I started off with pretty low minimums. And if you think about like what you order as well, like for myself, like pins take like at minimum like 5 to 6 weeks for production and whatnot. So that's not something you can do like made to order. But things like maybe like digital prints, you can get that done really fast. So I'm still learning like very much along the way. Like I'll get into this later, but I just started doing drop shipping prints, which is much faster than like say going to a letterpress and getting a die cut and whatnot. So it all depends on your products and what you intend to sell and like those production and lead times. But when I started up, I had a pretty low quantity, and like, to be quite honest, I still have high quantities of things that don't sell that are sitting there. Some things sold really fast, and it's hard to tell at first, but again, you learn along the way.
What about you, Alex?
Yeah, very similar experience to Rachel. I find that the more time you spend kind of building relationships with manufacturers, printers, pin makers and stuff, the better sense you get of timing. So again, you have to be conscientious of how long something takes to make, what minimum quantity orders are, right? I'm, fortunate that the printer that or a printer that I've used in the past doesn't have minimums. So it's easy to do like one-offs or even just like testing. So if you can find somebody that'll do that for you, that's really great because it's really low risk. I find that, well, I was doing a lot of markets before. So currently I do have a lot of stock lying around, which would normally be, carted around different events in Ottawa, but is not the case. So it's kind of just hanging out, but it's sort of a combination, I find, because I do have some prints that I get printed from a print shop. And then I also have my own printer, like a big, pretty heavy duty printer that I use for like smaller prints, one-offs. Sometimes when I do like private commissions, people will request like a couple different prints of the final piece to give as gifts to their family members. So having a printer of your own can also be really, really helpful. It's definitely an investment, but I find that I can test a lot of stuff that way as well. So yeah, stuff that I get like manufactured, obviously I tend to keep larger quantities of, but I do try not to have too much stock lying around. Also just for like sustainability reasons, right? You don't want to just have a bunch of stuff. So yeah.
For me, I just learned that it really depends on the product and the printing technique as well. So prints by far are just the easiest in terms of, I wouldn't necessarily mind having inventory of that, but not too crazy, like nothing too crazy. Like maybe one design I'll have like 10 prints of the 8x10 and the 11x14 inch size, because those two sizes sell the most, as opposed to having 10 prints of my bigger 24x36 inch, right? So with prints, I just went off of size. But then when it came to apparel, I definitely do not like having inventory of apparel because like they both said, you end up sitting with stock, and with apparel, you have sizes that come into play. So let's say all your smalls and mediums sell, but then you have to deal with all these extra larges and 2XLs just sitting around. But sometimes you don't really have a choice, because the printing technique for apparel will determine whether there's minimums. So if you're screen printing, I think for the most part, printers will require minimum, because the machine is way more heavy duty and more time consuming. So they don't want to waste their time on just one off. So I found out that definitely screen printing, you need a minimum. I was able to get 50 minimums per design with my printer, which is still a lot for me, considering, again, designs, size, color, and all those variables.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also DTG, which is direct to garment printing, which is kind of like a digital printer that kind of like prints your apparel, if that makes sense. So that I was able to do one-off. So that one is made to order. But again, compared to screen printing is better in terms of quality. So there's so many layers when it comes to apparel, as you can tell. So with that, whether it's made to order or whether it's inventory, it really depends on the quality and the type of technique of the print you're trying to go for. For other little things like stickers, greeting cards, they're smaller, they don't cost as much. So for those, I definitely keep inventory. And like, if I ever have greeting cards that don't sell, I'll use those and probably write like cute little thank you notes for my customers sometimes. The ones that are super nice and understanding and patient, I'll include like a handwritten note. Because I did used to write a handwritten note for all orders. Then it got to a point where I couldn't really write every single order. So I just kind of nitpick the the ones who returned, the ones I would recognize that would keep coming back. So I would recycle my greeting cards that don't sell for something like that, or even the stickers, throw in stickers for free if they don't sell. So yeah, depends on a bunch of variables. It's kind of hard to answer that question.
No, that's great. And it's true. It's not, one size fits all for things like that. What about you, Rachel? How does it work with pins and different things? Do you do made to order or?
With pins, no, because those do require pretty long lead times, and I'm trying to find a more local manufacturer, which is quite hard. So for pins, I think for production, it's about minimum 5-6 weeks, and then you have to factor in shipping and whatnot, which could be like a week or like a month, shipping all over the place. So for pins, that's quite much a longer process for me, but for prints, it can be pretty quick. I've had letterpress prints, which again, like Fiona mentioned, it requires just way more work, more machinery to create. So those are a bit more custom, but like I mentioned earlier, I was able to start drop shipping prints, and that kind of takes care of the printing and shipping for me as well, and inventory. So all good.
So the big question, and I know that we got that question even before, like a few weeks before when we launched this event, how do you establish pricing? And you all had different answers to this last time we spoke. And I really liked your approach. I mean, all of your approach, but Fiona, you had one like where you go backwards. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the reason I go backwards is because, so basically if you're selling a low cost item, so let's say it costs $10, and you don't factor in printing, cost of materials, cost of shipping supplies, cost of shipping itself, there's a whole other bunch of costs that come in. So at the end of the day, you're left with like a $3 profit, right? Out of a $10 item. So I was like, okay, let me work backwards instead. Let me figure out how much it costs to actually print this item. Let me figure out what kind of shipping supplies I'm going to need, because it's more than just a box, depending on your item, obviously. But I just realized for me in particular, it was more than just getting a box. There's bubble wrap, there's even tape. Like you'd be surprised how this stuff finishes so quick and ends up becoming so expensive in the long run. So work backwards, figure out how much your cost of goods, figure out as best as you can how much shipping would be, and then whatever you're left, you just have to figure out your profit margins, basically. Like, how big of a margin do I have? How high can I go in my pricing that's still relatively reasonable? But then at the same time, you also don't want to undersell yourself. So as much as that's one technique, you also have to just be confident in your abilities and your artwork, and just price what you're worth. So put in the hours it took to create this particular art design, the schooling, if you went to school for it. So there's different factors, more so the ones you can actually quantify, and more so the ones where you kind of have to pick a number out of the air. But you just kind of have to think, okay, if this drawing took me 10 hours, how much would I pay myself per hour, for example? And it's like a whole math equation. But for the most part, I kind of started with the ones I could quantify. So I worked backwards, like I mentioned, in terms of the cost of the goods, shipping, packaging, and stuff.
Yeah, so if we're being transparent to like the audience tonight, Ariane and I kind of learned that the hard way with our zine, where like we kind of broke even. So we have to recalculate everything for the next one to come. But again, we just jump in, just like all of you, right? We had no idea, and we tried, and now we know better. But to have a specific idea, like Alex, you mentioned that you did a bit of market research just to have a starting point.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the main way I kind of figured out my pricing, was just literally seeing what everyone else is charging for like a similar quality product, right? Like, as I said, I kind of got into all of this through in-person events, which I can appreciate is kind of unusual. It's kind of sort of an unusual way to get started with all of this. But one of the benefits of that was that because I was doing all of these like markets and tabling everywhere, I got to network a lot, and I got to get to know a lot of other illustrators and designers in the community, and actually see in person, what they were charging, and what the quality of their product was. And also get to know, like, I talked to them a lot about their suppliers and their manufacturers. Like, it was a really great way to kind of build up my resource bank a little bit. So yeah, in addition to everything that Fiona said about factoring in, the cost of like the packaging materials, shipping, handling, and also just your experience, like, that's something you need to consider, as you said, like your education or all of the time that you spend like refining your craft. Like, I can appreciate that it's hard to put a number on that. It's still difficult for me. Like, I still kind of have to think really hard about how much I'm charging for projects or commissions. But as Fiona said, like, the most important thing is, make sure that you're charging what you're worth, and yeah, just, be confident. And, it's important to have like a rationale, I guess, for why you're charging things. And if somebody doesn't want to buy it, then maybe that person is not meant for your work, right? It doesn't mean that you're overcharging necessarily. It doesn't mean that it's like a bad price. But yeah, charge what you're comfortable with, but also charge what you're worth.
Yeah, and again, not that I want to like bring too much of my business into this, but like I go through this pretty much every time I have a proposal or like a consultation, and sometimes like the answers can be like they can be mean about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, stay confident and like know your worth. And that's pretty much what you were saying too, Rachel, right? Like, to acknowledge the time and all the education. And
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think Fiona really nailed it, and like same with Alex, like +1 to everything you both said. And coming from a design background, it's like, I think about like, it took me X amount of hours to make this illustration, and then you factor in like everything they mentioned, materials, shipping, time. And for me, like when I'm doing a freelance graphic design, I'm always thinking I'm charging my time too. Like, how long was this meeting? Like, I'm charging for that too. How long did it take me to research and like Google X, Y, and Z? Like, I factor that into, like, I'm so terrible at math, so like I can't break it down, but like those are just things you have to keep in mind. So like when I'm thinking about my business, on top of everything that Alex and Fiona said, it's like I still have to charge out there to the post office in the snow and stand in line, and that's money, that's time. So those are all things you need to consider. And I know it's a lot, but I think just doing a ton of research and factoring your worth. And something else that I haven't been good at is just also rethinking it every few years. So I've been running my store for about 2 or 3 years, but I've been doing freelance for about like 6 or 7 years. And it's time to reevaluate every year. It's like, you know what, these people are charging this now, like I can up this, or I can do that. Like, or, I put way more time into like taking these Instagram photos, and like the quality of my advertising is better, so I'm going to charge a bit more. So that's something I haven't been good at, but that's something I've started doing, is just reevaluating, like, does this make sense at this time, at this year, whatnot. So those are other things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So can we say that as a rule of thumb, maybe you can have like the first idea of a pricing, and I'm going like outside the conversation here, and I'm being spontaneous, but but like, can we say like whatever you're thinking for a print, let's say add another 20 just because?
Yeah.
Like, why not?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, right? Like, if you're thinking 30 and it's a big print, like, for all the shipping handling, I'm throwing in a sticker in there, another 20 because I'm worth it.
Yeah.
It's a very scientific formula. Is the $20 more?
Yeah.
Why not, right? Like, try it. And if like, if you need to do a sale after, do a dual sale, like bring it down by 10, and that's like, whoa, it's on sale. Think about it. You still made $10. Think about it, for real.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's a really good point, Isabel. You should always give yourself room for the sales as well, right? That's actually a really good point. And plus, you just have to always remember that not everyone is your customer. I definitely was trying to sell to anyone and everyone, but not everyone is gonna like your stuff. Like, that's just life. It just happens. So if you're over here trying to fire the price for everyone. Like that does not exist. So you also have to just kind of find your audience in terms of like, what's the vibe you're trying to go for with your store? Are you trying to target university kids, posters in their bedrooms, or do you want to go for the person who's going to buy the original for $1,000 and frame it and hang it over his fireplace? So it's definitely your audience as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do that brand research, people.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing? Sorry,
Yes.
just one more thing that I found really helpful for pricing. And this is something that I only realized like much later. So this is like printing adjacent, I would say. But one thing that I got really confident in doing with my editorial and freelance work was I always charge a deposit, and I always charge, whatever percentage we negotiate in the contract. But the reason I charge that deposit is because of things like onboarding, the emails, the communication, the research, drafts, revisions, all of the time that you spend, not just creating and producing the art, but like thinking about the art, talking about the product, right? Like all of that is really valuable. Your time is so valuable. And like, I use that as kind of like a frame for everything now, right? Like it's not just for my editorial work, it's for all of my design work, and that all of that factors into the pricing. So just thinking about, what we've all been talking about, marketing, communications, that phone call, that like meeting with someone that maybe didn't turn out, right? Like maybe you didn't get the contract, like that, all of that is really valuable and can be turned into profit if you will let it, and if you charge what you're worth. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and what Alex said about the deposit, I made mine non-refundable. No shame. I told them
Me too.
non-refundable deposit, because you don't know what's going to happen midway, and I've already invested all of my time into this. Then you just ghost me, or some people probably just don't mind giving away money. Cool, if you leave, that's fine. I need to make the money for whatever time I've already put into this.
Absolutely.
Halfway.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you have for specifically freelance, and if it's commission, I would say have a contract too.
Yes.
Yeah. Always protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that the hard way in the first year of my freelancing. Now I know better. And it did save my butt a few times. So when choosing a selling platform, what should one consider? What should one consider? How about, I know, Rachel, like you work at Shopify, but you have a lot of opinions.
A lot of thoughts here. So I sell on Shopify. I also sell on Etsy. And then I make most of my sales on Instagram, actually. So people come from my Instagram and are either directed to my Shopify store, but there's pros and cons of each, and I'll dig into both. To be quite honest, I make more sales on my Etsy. Etsy has, it has already a dedicated marketplace. Like people are already on there looking for stuff. You don't have to do much advertising. People are already there ready to buy everything. The con about it though is, like, say you search for a cactus enamel pin, your cactus enamel pin is going to be there with 50 other cactus enamel pins. So it's like, oh, like I was looking for this, like, oh, this one's nicer. So there's pros and cons of each, because Etsy, you get more steady sales because there is just a built-in customer base. But with Shopify, you like seriously get to control everything there. You get to control your brand, you get to control your marketing, you get to control like literally every little aspect. So it just depends. Like for me, like since I do have a daytime job and I also do freelance, like I don't have much time to do any advertising, which is why Etsy is working for me right now. But ideally, I'd like to get to a place where I can create a really cool brand on Etsy, Twitter, whatever, TikTok or whatnot, and like have this built-in nice brand. So yeah, there's pros and cons of each. It just depends on like your time, your effort and whatnot, and what you want to like spend your time doing. So like for me, I do find marketing to be quite time consuming. It is a lot of fun getting to post all that stuff, but with all the other things I do, I just don't have time for it. So it just depends. Like I would say like Etsy is great for like starting off and just having like a bit more of like, I guess I would say like passive income, but I think it's good to have a little bit of things here and there.
Mm-hmm. And you, Alex, you are only on Etsy, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, so I am on Etsy. I also have a Redbubble that I've been neglecting. I admit, it was the very first thing that I did. So I will backtrack a little bit and say that when I was first starting out, I had read about online print shops. So you might know these as like Society 6, InPrint, Redbubble. I think there's another one that I'm missing. They're pretty popular. And that was where I first started selling like online, I would say. And the reason for that is that if you know anybody has experience with these platforms, is that basically you just take your design and you can apply it to all kinds of products. You know, tote bags, pillows, shower curtains, like you name it. Like there's all kinds of stuff, which is actually really exciting and can be really encouraging to kind of see what your work looks like on all of these applications. The only downside is that they take a pretty significant cut. So unless you're making like tons and tons of sales, you won't see a whole lot of return. But it still is kind of a low risk way for you to get your artwork out there. You still like retain the rights to your artwork, and yeah, I mean, I would recommend it if you're just starting out. Some people are very, very successful on these platforms and they make all kinds of sales. So, you know, it didn't work super great for me, but it was a way for me to get my work out there. And then from Redbubble, I knew that my goal was that I wanted an Etsy shop. So a few months later, I opened my Etsy shop, which you know, everything that Rachel said about it is great for starting out because it's a very familiar brand. People know what Etsy is. Most consumers are familiar with how it works. The marketplace format makes it very easy to navigate. The only thing is that when you're using Etsy, you don't have a lot of creative control compared to something like Shopify or elsewhere. So everyone's shop is going to look pretty much the same. Like the way that everything is displayed might not necessarily be in line with what you picture for your brand. But I've personally found it really great. Etsy, like things kind of change with Etsy a lot. I know that we'll probably get into this later, but they're really pushing for things like free shipping and stuff. So that's kind of a consideration, is you might feel pressure to maybe charge a little bit less. But anyway, that's a discussion that we'll talk about later. But yes, Etsy, I would say is a great place to start. You can have like 2 or 3 products there and see how it goes. And it's pretty low risk, and you have a good amount of control, I would say.
But touching on Etsy, like that's what you were saying, Fiona, that you felt a little bit like it was like a bit.
I found it a bit strict, and I mean, with Etsy, I didn't start on Etsy. I made my own website on Squarespace, just because it was one of those like drag and drop platforms that was pretty easy to use, and it was pretty affordable compared to Shopify. So I started on Squarespace, but I kind of do wish I started on Etsy though. Yes, it's a bit strict, and yes, they do charge you per listing, but there's organic traffic, and organic traffic is so key, because you can run ads all you want. You can spend money on ads, and you will get audiences, you will get people purchasing, but it's ads are really, really, really complicated. And again, you're investing all this money and you want to see a return, and it can get a lot. So with Etsy, like both ladies mentioned, people come onto Etsy knowing that they're looking for handmade items, they're looking for artistic works, so they're coming ready to shop. So I would definitely say Etsy is a good place to start. The other downside though is, again, like I said, they do charge you per listing, so you can't go and put like all, well, you could, but I mean, it depends on how much you want to spend. I believe it's like 20 cents per listing, which doesn't sound too much, but if you have like, let's say 20 listings on there, and they keep getting charged, I think it's like every 3 months or something, as opposed to your website where you can put in all your products, all your listings. If you have one design on a print, you can also put it on there as a t-shirt, as a mug, as a pillow, as opposed to Etsy where you have to be like, okay, what's my best-selling item out of all these? Let me choose that to put on my Etsy. So it's a bit limiting. They're a bit strict. Like Alex said, they're really trying to push free shipping. They're really particular. And I guess they're strict because they're trying to protect the authenticity of handmade goods, right? Which I can respect for sure. So it definitely is a good artist platform. but it has its pros and cons, but it would be a really good place to start. I wish I'd started on Etsy, because that organic traffic I would have now been able to transfer to my website at some point through some sort of marketing technique, whether it was through little inserts I left in their packages that say, hey, visit my website, anayaarts.ca, and then redirect them to your website, because your website is your home. You get to decorate it however you want. You get to make all the rules on your website, right? And you also own everything on your website. You own your email list. You technically, like, you own your customers, as weird as that sounds, as opposed to like Instagram and all these other platforms that could shut down tomorrow and you would have lost all your contacts and all your customers. So it's definitely good to have your own website so that you just have some sort of ownership, which goes into email marketing and whatnot. But to start, definitely Etsy, like Alex said, Redbubble, Society6, those are also great platforms to start off if you don't want to invest too much right off the bat. If you just kind of want to put your stuff out there and just kind of sit back and observe, that's also good for research.
I love how this was like for all your answers, it was loaded with information. I think that everybody's hands is probably going like in a cramp right now from all the information that was given. This was gold. Sorry, I'm French. So when it comes to printing, do you do a test before? And do you ask for paper samples and color proofs? Like, what's your routine when it comes to that? And Rachel, start with you.
Yeah, I always get samples, like no matter what it is, even if it's just like a poster or like clothing and whatnot, always get samples. Like there are some times where you can't get samples, like for example, a pin that requires like creating like a metal die cut and whatnot and a crazy production time. So there are definitely risks you take, but anytime you can get a proof, because maybe you'll print 1,400 typoed name badges. But anytime you can get one, I like super strongly recommend it. And if not, like I always ask for samples. Like for example, if I'm working with a new vendor and they can't get me a proof of like recently I made these keychains and they can't get me a proof of my exact design, I ask for a sample of a previously created one from someone else, just so I can get an idea of like the quality, the texture, the weight and whatnot. So yes, to get a sample and a proof, and if not, ask to get a sample of something else that they created.
Yeah. Again, like for the zine, just to be transparent, we ask for 3 samples just to make sure that everything was, and still there's still ways to improve. But simple. And I'm seeing Alex going like this. So, so what, like you sample too?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of like finding a printer in your community that you can go to in person. Obviously with COVID, it's not happening right now, but before, I would go to my print shop in person and they would have like a paper sample binder and we would go through the paper together, and like I wanted to feel it, I wanted to see it in person. And so getting like a real sense of how it looks, how the paper looks, how the paper feels. Also, like Rachel said, get as many proofs as you possibly can, or as many samples as you possibly can, because there are some colors, and we had talked about this before, but I use a lot of like yellow in my work, and I don't know if this is just a me problem, but like yellow doesn't like being scanned, it doesn't like being printed the way that I like it. So for me and for my work, which has a lot of like these warm tones, I do find, yes, samples, proofs, get as many as you can. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine it would be the same for apparel, right, Fiona? Like,
oh my God, yeah. Apparel definitely gets samples. Because of the apparel, again, like I said, there's so many layers to apparel. So again, printing technique, the type of fabric, and then with fabric, every brand can be different. American Eagle is different from, sorry, not American Eagle. American Apparel is different from Bella canvas, which is different from Gildan. And then not only is the fabric different, their sizing is different. So a Gildan small will probably fit like a Gildan's women's small will probably fit like a unisex small in American Apparel. Like, so definitely test out the brand, the fabric, the printing technique when it comes to apparel. Wear it yourself, wear it, wash it, do everything in it to just understand, because you have to be ready to answer all types of questions about it. So always, I mean, have the technical description, of course, talking about if it's 50% polyester and 50% cotton, that's needed, but people will also ask you like, hey, does it stretch after you put it in the dryer? Does it, you have to see if the ink will leak, how well the print technique, like how long it'll last, if it'll start peeling off if you did vinyl, or if it will start to fade if you did direct to garment. So with apparel, yeah, there's definitely a need for a sample, but again, depending on the printing technique, a sample might not be possible. So with screen printing, like I mentioned before, it's a huge machine. It takes a lot of time. They're literally rolling out the ink onto the fabric with several screens, depending on how many layers your design has. So it's a super complicated process. So they can't exactly do one sample because they also have to make a screen particularly for you and your design. So what I found was that my printer, I knew for a fact I wanted this design to be screen printed. He confirmed that it's possible to screen print, but I just still wanted to see it in person because I'd never seen this design screen printed. So he went ahead and made the screen and then sampled it on like an old rag or like an old fabric, or, you know, they do have like a bin full of like old stuff that they're able to print on it. So that was one way I was able to get a sample. I couldn't necessarily wear it in that case, but at least I got the quality part and the print quality part just approved. But another thing with samples is if you are able to get an actual product sample, then it's really, sorry, my computer's dying. If you are able to get a product sample, then use that for your photography, your product photography as well. Because with the with apparel that requires inventory that has minimums, sometimes it might take them a while to make you 100 hoodies, right? It might take them like a week, but it's good to have that one sample if they're able to. If they're able to give you a sampled hoodie, use that, take your product shots before you make it all dirty and mess it up. Take your product shots, wear it, like I said, test it out. And then by the time that, you know, they finish printing your full batch, you would, if your website is ready, your product pages are ready, your descriptions, everything is all set. You just have to make it live and start selling. But with print, again, like the girls mentioned, yeah, paper, the type of print you want, making sure the colors come out right. Even in terms of sizing, like knowing what shipping packages would fit, because if you have an 11 by 14 print, you're not going to buy an 11 by 14 rigid envelope. You have to buy like an 11.57, you know, so it's definitely good to have samples because all those kind of factors you need to test. You just need to test everything.
So funny story on that too, again, for the audience and the zine. I sat here, I'm like, oh, no. But like, so we ordered envelopes for a zine, right? But it's, Ariane was setting up the shop and she's like, we don't have envelopes if they want to order 10. And we're like, oh my God. And we're like 2 days pre-launch the zine. So we're like, 2 maximum, that's it.
Yeah, we're like, how many can you fit? That's the maximum order.
Yeah. So again, live and learn.
Indeed. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no bigger reason than that, Omar.
Yeah, I was also wondering that when you posted that, I was like, oh, interesting. Like maybe they want more people to, I don't know what.
Well, I mean, it was, you know, good as well because we only had a limited quantity. So
yeah.
Having one person buy 10 is also not the best idea in our case. So yeah, do you suggest, so talking about printing and getting samples, do you suggest developing a relationship with one printer, and how do you do that exactly? We'll start with Rachel.
Yeah, for sure. I have relationship with so many printers that do so many different things. So I wouldn't say one printer, but again, it depends on what you're selling. So say you just want to specialize in prints, then for sure you make that connection. But I have someone that I go to for like letterpress. I have someone that I go to for screen printing. I have someone for socks, sweaters, X, Y, Z, just because they really know their craft and I trust them. So and it depends on the client that I work to when I do freelance. If they have a really high budget, I'm going to go for a really high quality printer. If they have like a lower budget, then I'll go somewhere a bit more medium. So it depends on like your scope, your project, and your product as well. But definitely recommend developing a relationship with your printer. There is one printer that I work with mostly with my day job, but I message him so much, and I'm so honest about like timing and whatnot, and like just real with him, just like, listen, I'm sorry that I need this in a week, but can you do it? And I've been working with him for like 4 years now, and just recently I reached out with him for a personal project and he gave it to me for free because I just kept coming to him. So like, yes, make a relationship with your printer.
What about you, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely everything that Rachel said. I think it's great to have relationships with several different printers and manufacturers depending on like the quality of your product and the type of product. So like for myself personally, I have like a digital print shop that I use. I have someone who makes my stickers. I have someone who does my screen printing. I have another person who does my pins, because again, like they're all experts in their own in their own craft, right? So I think it's nice to have those relationships, and I find like if you can keep them as local as possible, that's also great, not only for, you know, emissions, but also just for convenience, right? Because you might be able to meet them in person, or, you know, you have I don't know, like proximity makes a really big difference. I was going to add something to what Rachel said about developing relationships with printers. Oh yes. So for me, one thing that's been really helpful is like making your intentions clear from the get-go with your printer. So if you're approaching someone, you know, if you were like referred to someone through someone else, so going back to what I said earlier about all of my in-person markets, I was really fortunate that a lot of the people I met over the years shared their resources with me. So that I was like, hey, where did you get that sweater made? And then they would tell me. And then I would take that, I would write an email, like just a cold email to that screen printer and be like, hey, I met so-and-so at this market. I hear you guys have been working together for years. I was wondering if we could chat about doing a design. Like, here's a sample of my work. Do you think it would work well? And then you can kind of, you can get the ball rolling from there. So yeah, making your intentions known, referring to other people in the community, pulling all of your networking in is all really helpful. And like Rachel said, like the longer you have a relationship with one particular printer, the more flexible that relationship can become. And, you know, they might be willing to work with you under like more stressful circumstances or shorter timelines. I have a really positive memory of, I had designed some prints for fundraising, and I had, I picked them up. I went to pick them up at my printer, and they were like, oh, these are really nice. What are they going to be for? And I said, well, they're for a fundraising event it's for International Women's Day. And they were like, oh, these are on the house. Like if it's for fundraising. So it was so sweet of them to do that. So I think that, yeah, having those long-term relationships, it really pays off in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I was going to say it can be very easy to order something online from kind of one of those online print shops, because you're like, oh, I have like phone anxiety. So I'm like, I don't have to call anyone. I don't have to talk to anybody. I'll just like upload my design and it'll come in the mail. But it's true that you'll just get what you get and you can't really go back. It is what it is. So that's definitely a downside to it. Fiona, anything to add?
Yeah, with me, I agree with what they said in terms of it'll be nice to have a local printer for sure. But again, depending on what you want and your needs, you might have to go overseas, you might have to go online. But for the local one, I actually had a very bad first experience with my printer, and he actually doesn't have the best reputation in town either. But I didn't know that the first time I went to him. So the first time I went to him, he did such a bad job that I was like, okay, yeah, never again. And then again, I also learned about his reputation. I'm like, yeah, I clearly like he's not the one to go to. And then I don't know what made me go back to him. And then, but this time my approach was different. You know, it's just a matter of how you speak to them, and like Alex said, tell them straight up. So I told him, look, I'm a business. I'm trying to start a business. Actually, this is what I need. If everything goes well, I'll be coming back to you. Like, if your product is good, then I have no reason to run around town. I'll just keep coming back to you. So I was straightforward with him. And I even told him, I'm like, hey, the first time you did something for me, it was actually not that great. Like, I told him in a joking way, and he was like, oh my God, really? What happened? And we actually got down to the issue of my first experience. So again, it's just about being transparent. And he's like, so sorry about that. That usually doesn't happen. And again, like, I feel like he's just misunderstood. So I'm very patient, and we got to know each other. Now I have my own prices that he gives me. So he makes things slightly cheaper for me. We joke around, and we do have a relationship for sure, in that I can call him up for something that I need last minute, and he'll be like, okay, just give me 2 hours. You can pass by in 2 hours, it'll be ready. Right. So, but then again, if you do need to order from like Alibaba, for example, overseas, China, a lot of the suppliers there do want to have a relationship with you. They don't want to just do one-offs. They actually almost kind of chase you for that relationship. It's like, hey, we promise you, if you know our items are top class, if you like the sample, if you like what you have, please do come back. And they actually do want a relationship. So with Alibaba and all those other sites, for sure, once you find a good supplier, once you guys have communicated, you've sampled something, then, you know, stick with them, build that online relationship with them. But for you know, like Society6, Redbubble, Printify, Printful, the online print on demand, you can't really build relationships with those. They're just kind of like, here's my design, put it on a t-shirt, put it on a mug, print, send to customer. So that one, it's convenient in the sense that, as Rachel said, you don't have to do any of the printing, packaging, or shipping, but you clearly don't have a relationship. You're just going to customer service or their chat support whenever you have an issue. They don't really care about you that much. You're just paying them, they're getting the job done. So it really depends, you know, local, overseas, online. There's different dynamics and different relationships to be had, but I would definitely say always go for the relationship. There's perks to it.
So a lot of people are curious about which printer you work with in the chat. So maybe at the end you can refer some of your favorites in the chat, if that's easier to pop a link in there if you want. So we're talking a lot about printing, but there's also the side of digital listings or printable versions of work, let's say on Etsy or even on your website. Have any of you guys tried that, or would you recommend it, and why? We'll start with Rachel.
No, I haven't done any digital or printable versions. I very much I very much want to control what it gets printed on, how it gets displayed and whatnot, and what happens to it after. I think I'm definitely very protective over that. And sorry, my cat is screaming. He wants to say hi. But no, I get very protective over it. So no, I haven't done it yet. I don't know if I will, just because I am very protective over it. Yeah, it's not something that's really crossed my mind yet, but I'll never say no, but who knows?
What about you, Alex?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I haven't done that, but I know that there are a lot of illustrators who do, and who actually find it like really great, especially with everything that's going on. It's been a great way for people to access artwork that maybe they wouldn't otherwise be able to access because of like shipping delays and all of that stuff, and also just supply issues, right? I know at least in, you know, around like last March, April, like people were having a really hard time even getting their stuff printed and even keeping stock in their Etsy shops because everything was like ground to a halt. So printables were a really great and accessible way for them to still sell their artwork. Obviously, you're not charging the same amount as you would for like a physical print, but it's still a way for you to generate income and for you to get your artwork out there to your customers. So it seems like it's great if you can make it work for you. I have heard that you have to be really careful because essentially you're giving them like your file, right? Like we're so protective of our like high resolution original files because, you know, who's to say that they're not going to take your work? Again, this is my concern, but who's to say that they're not just going to take it and maybe resell it on their end? I mean, you don't really know what happens to the artwork after. So in that case, I guess you just have to be really clear and like your listing, you know, saying that this is a, you know, this is a copyrighted image. This is a digital printable file for personal use only, not for resale. Yeah. So no, I haven't tried it, but I hear it can be a really good alternative.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I did order one time a digital product, and when I received it, because I'm a graphic designer, I opened the PDF in Illustrator and realized that everything, because it was kind of like a customizable portrait, and all of the different elements that you could customize a portrait with were there. They were outside the artboard, and I was like, no, I couldn't really do like a whole series of my own portraits, and it freaked me out. And anyways, I let them know that that was the case, and hopefully they fixed that. But yeah, they were like the opposite of you, maybe not protective enough of their product. Fiona, have you considered doing digital listings?
It's very tempting. I'm not gonna lie. It's super tempting because you don't have to deal, again, shipping. Shipping haunts my life. You don't have to deal with shipping. You don't have to deal with packaging, fulfillment. You just don't have to deal with fulfillment. They literally press a button and they get it, right? So it's super tempting, but no, I haven't done it just because the internet is ruthless. And you're lucky that you're nice, Anaya, and you actually told the artist, but there's some people who would have taken that and just ran with it, right? So I'm very protective of my designs. I'm not trying to put it out there in that type of way. And again, like Rachel said, I do want to control how it's printed, what it's printed on. It's easy to give people instructions, but people really don't read. People do not read what you give, the information you give them. Like you could tell them everything from A to B, 1 to 3, and they don't read. So again, I feel like that's just a customer service nightmare with people coming back being like, oh, I printed on I printed at Walmart and the yellow didn't come out like it looks on your shop and blah, 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 blah. So I just feel like that's also a customer service nightmare, but I don't know. I've never tried it and I don't think I will, because as much as it's stressful and it's a lot of work, I'm still gonna take control of the process from start to finish. The only thing I would do is the print on demand, like Rachel suggested. I haven't done it yet, but I'm seriously considering it now that the holiday rush ended. Just seeing how much work that ended up being with COVID and the holidays combined, I'm like, okay, maybe a print on demand company would have been better to handle all of this. So in that sense, yes, because you still own the rights to your artwork. It's a print on demand. They're not gonna get up and run away with your artwork. Like it's a safe platform to go and upload your design and then put it on different products that you want to be physically printed. So that's the only like digital way that I would go about it.
I think personally, to add to that, I think it depends also what your digital product is. There's a difference between an art print and something more basic like a fillable list or something for a calendar or something that's a bit more easy maybe to print at home, and that maybe the color, the exact color isn't as important. And so I think if it was up to me to add a digital product, I would do something like that where maybe it's just black and white and maybe it's a coloring page or something like that. That is very hard to mess up maybe on the other end. So
actually,
sorry, go ahead.
I do know an Etsy seller that does both. Actually, when I asked her opinion, she said that she does sell the artwork that she hasn't really put too much time and effort into, she does sell that digital. So for example, if she draws like a quote, like let's say it's live, love, laugh, and she draws it in her style, you know, that she's able to sell a digital print of, because it doesn't really matter if someone steals that. That's a super basic example, but just to kind of give you an idea that she said that with her more like simple basic stuff, she wouldn't mind selling as digital, but then she also does sell physical products too. So she did both, and it worked for her.
Sorry, I said, oh, and then, and yeah, I it's actually related to what I was going to say, Fiona, is that like, I think if you're not too attached, like maybe don't do digital prints of like your darlings, if you know what I mean. But like, Ariane, you were talking about coloring pages, and you reminded me that I also have an account on Gumroad. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but Gumroad is a platform where people can sell like art and design tools mostly. So that's where I get a lot of my brushes that I use for Procreate when I make my digital art, is on Gumroad. And it's also where I have coloring pages available, and you can set the pay scale, which is actually really nice. So I have coloring pages that I designed right as the pandemic started, because you know, I knew a lot of people were home with their kids, and I was like, and it was a fun design experiment for me. I was like, oh, let's just make some coloring pages. And I did like pay what you can, and you know, of course a lot of people download it for free, but a lot of people were also very generous and, you know, tipped me, you know, $2 to $5 or something. So it's a nice way to generate some passive income. It's digital downloads, so there's no shipping, there's no fulfillment involved. And I mean, at least for me personally, like I'm not really worried about that type of artwork getting stolen or resold. And in fact, I've had people approach me and ask if they could put it in like activity kits for summer camps or community organizations or something. And so I think it's kind of a nice, it was kind of a nice surprise, I have to say. So yes, Gumroad is a very fun platform as well, a very like low risk way for you to get your art out there and experiment with like digital downloads.
Nice. I did not know about Gumroad, so that's something new for me. I will have to look into it. So shipping, the dreaded shipping question. So we did touch on it, and you guys said, you know, that it's something that you never quite, maybe not master, because it's always a different thing. But do you have any tips? Just any tips on how to get started, or things that you maybe learned along the way that, you know, you wish you knew in the beginning in terms of shipping and packaging? And I have some follow-up questions to that one. We'll start with Alex.
Yeah, sure. So shipping is wild. I'm not gonna lie. It's like a whole, it can get really, really complicated. For me personally, I think I'm pretty lucky in that most of the shipping that I do is not tracked. So because all of my products are just flat, it's like flat paper goods, cards, stickers, that kind of thing. I just do like standard letter mail shipping with the Canada Post. I have a postage scale that I bought, so I can like weigh and determine like how much each thing is going to cost. I'm not too technical with it. I know some people print their own shipping labels. I haven't ventured into that yet myself. So basically I usually just have a bunch of stamps lying around and I just do the math. I go on the Canada Post website, I see like what all of the international costs are, and I have to do all of the math essentially. And it takes a long time, but it has so far been fine. As far as things like packaging, I learned a lot from YouTube, frankly. I literally just like, I went on YouTube one day and was like, shipping and packaging for illustrators. And there are a whole bunch of illustrators who have like step-by-step videos, free, you know, step-by-step videos for the types of products they use. And like what type of, you know, do they do shipping labels? Do they do stamps? You know, all that good stuff. So I know it's kind of a boring answer, but seriously, like YouTube is really great, is a really great resource for that. As far as like my packaging supplies, I really like clearbags.ca. It's a Canadian company. I think they're based in Strathroy, and they have pretty much everything that I need. Like they have these compostable like plastic sleeves that I can use for like wholesale or retail. So if you need something to like display nicely and you want like plastic, you can do that. They've got like cardboard mailers. I have a whole bunch, maybe I'll show you later, but they've got these great cardboard mailers that are like flexible. So they can actually, they're flat, but they can actually like expand up to like a few inches. So you can put a lot of product in it and it still is flat enough for like a letter mail slot. So you don't have to register it, which is a lot cheaper. Yeah. And so yeah, clearbags.ca is where I get a lot of my supplies. YouTube is where I learned how to do a lot of the packaging. Asking people in my community, in my like vendor community, how they did all of this was really, really helpful as well. So like, you know, don't be afraid to ask around in your social network. And I think that's pretty much it. It's a lot of trial and error. It's really, really intimidating. And I find that I learn something new, like every time I go to the post office. I don't know about you, Rachel and Fiona, but like, I feel like I have a handle on it and then something changes or like the prices change or like maybe I miscalculated, but yeah, it's kind of scary, but once you get into rhythm, it's not so bad.
Anything to add to that, Rachel?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of trial and error. I think when I started out, I just started gathering a bunch of stuff like bags, packaging, whatnot. Quickly learned that a lot of it didn't work, or I just like didn't like it in a few months. So like my advice to you is maybe not get a huge quantity of it, because I still have things from like my very first round that I just didn't like or didn't fit with my brand anymore. And things that I didn't factor into it is the weight of the packaging also affects your shipping and whatnot. So I had these pretty heavy duty cardboard mailers that I thought were really nice, and they were really nice, but they really affected the cost of shipping. So I went with something lighter. Good thing I bought a box of like 50 of them. But that's my advice for you, is just like start small, like test it out, because it does require like quite a bit of testing to get it right. Maybe you won't get it right. I'm still learning about it. But for what has worked for me personally is just buying my packaging in small quantities and testing it. I do print my labels, like I have a label printer and whatnot, and I have like a small scale as well, but my products are pretty light. If you have like heavier products, like that might be a whole other world. But it depends what platform you're on. So like I know with Shopify, like trying not to make this a sales pitch, with Shopify, you do have like a discounted, you do get discounted rates with Canada Post and whatnot. So you're able to like put in like the size of my package, like for these pins, like all my packages are gonna be this size and this size, this weight and whatnot, and they'll give you like a discounted rate for this label and whatnot. So yeah, it's very much trial and error, and yeah, I'm still learning a lot.
Fiona, you have definitely more varied products.
So shipping's fun, but no, I also have I also have a scale and a label printer, both from Amazon. And they're really helpful because from my smaller items, it's not a super big scale. It's like maybe this big. So I can pretty much weigh something as big as like 3 hoodies folded in a poly mailer bag. I can weigh that, but I can't weigh 24 by 36 framed prints, for example. But for the stuff that I can weigh, that I do have control over, I definitely prefer going that route where I just weigh my items, print my label, and like Rachel said, it's connected to Shopify. Canada Post is connected to Shopify, so they print the label. It's all professional. And, you know, it has your business name, your business address. It looks like a business sent you the item, right? So it's super professional. And one thing is you avoid lineups at Canada Post. Once you've printed your own labels and just slap them on the packages, you go to Canada Post, and usually on the side, they just have the drop-offs. So you just always leave them there, avoid the lines, avoid any of the craziness, and just be on your way. The only thing I would say is you make sure that you're not just like, for example, if the Canada Post is inside a Shoppers, make sure it's not like the Shoppers is open but Canada Post is closed. Don't just go and leave stuff when Canada Post is closed, because they're not responsible for that. Like someone in Shoppers can actually come and, I don't know, steal your item. So just always make sure you're dropping off when they're open, when there's someone there. I kind of like to make eye contact with them. They know me by now, and that's another thing with relationships. Build relationships with everyone. The Canada Post, I go to the one near home and the one near my work. I do know most of the employees there. So I've built relationships. I dig their brains. I'm always talking to them, joking. And like sometimes when a customer will ask me something and I have no clue, I'll kind of be like, so hey, this customer, I sent something to the US, blah, blah, blah. I said, do you think it's stuck at the border? They're like, oh, give me the tracking code. Let me look it up. But I mean, besides that, there's not much that you can know as a business when it comes to items. And okay, so with the holiday period and how crazy that was, I don't know how crazy it was for you, Alex and Rachel, but for me, shipping to the US as well, I've had people where it's been a month and a half and they still haven't received their items just because the postal services got overwhelmed and just the craziness of everything that's been happening. And you find some customers who totally forget that it's a pandemic. They totally forget that it's the holiday period and they're just hounding you like, where's my package? Can you find out where it is? And it's like, I'm sorry, I have the same information that you have. I have a tracking number. I put it on Canada Post and it tells me delayed. That's the information I can give you. That's the information you can see. So they think that we have some sort of like secret access to more than they do, which is fair enough. That's fair enough, but we don't. So that's why shipping has just become one of those things, because it's like, what's a polite way of letting someone know that I did my part, and now once it's been given to FedEx or Canada Post or whoever, it's like it's out of my hands now. So that's why shipping can become quite sensitive. And I'm actually surprised that, Alex, you don't do tracking. I am scared not to do tracking. Oh my God.
So the only reason I don't, and the only reason I think I can get away with not necessarily, is because I think my price points are fairly low and I get tracking for like private commission. So if I'm sending like original artwork, 100%, like I wouldn't dream of sending it without tracking. But I make it very clear in my Etsy listings that, you know, if you want to pay for tracking, you have to upgrade, because the problem is that, so say I have a print that's $15, the minimum amount for like a registered letter mail, like no matter how light it is like $12. So who's going to pay, you know, that much for tracking for something like that? So I know that it's a risk every time I do it, but so far it's been totally fine. And it's a risk that I'm comfortable accepting. That may not be the case for everybody. I don't necessarily recommend it for everybody, but Etsy is like a fairly small part of like my many diverse sources of income. So you know, if I spent more time like reorganizing my shop, I would think about that. But so far it's been okay. But yes, especially with the pandemic and everything that's been going on, I think something took like 2 months to get to Australia, and like the client was really, really kind and patient, but like shipping times right now are really, really, really impacted.
Yeah.
So,
and just when we spoke about pricing earlier, something I forgot to factor in as well is, you know, the shipping costs. So like she said, if something costs $12 to ship, but the product cost, I don't know what you said, $20, someone wouldn't necessarily want to pay $12, but you have to be willing to absorb some of that cost for them.
Yeah.
So you would probably charge them $6, and then you would take on the rest of the $6. I think someone would be more willing to pay $6 on a $20 item than $12 on a $20 item. Or, you know, you can have bundle deals where you're encouraging them to buy something else. So always offer free shipping over a certain amount. Yeah. I currently have free shipping over $80. So that actually encourages people to just add more to the cart, because everyone wants free shipping. Like they could have $200 worth in their cart, but if it's like a $10 shipping fee, they're going to be like, nope, abandoned cart. Like there's something about shipping that no one likes, no matter how much they're spending. If there's a shipping fee, they might leave. And it sucks because for the business, we can't take on all the costs of shipping. Shipping is expensive. Even for the smallest item, shipping is expensive no matter what. And then destination comes into play. So if anything, absorb what you can. And that goes back to what we said about pricing. So leave yourself some space to take on some of the shipping costs on behalf of the customer. But then there's also other techniques where you can upsell other products, encourage them to spend more to get free shipping. There's also create business accounts. So if you have an Amazon account, create a business account there, create a business account on Staples. So I use Staples, Amazon, because again, like Rachel said, I prefer not having too much inventory of shipping supplies. So I would order like maybe 50 poly mailers or 100 rigid mailers, knowing that this particular size sells a lot, so I don't mind having 100 of them. And accounts like Staples and Amazon do have business accounts where they do give you some sort of a discount as well, as opposed to going with the regular accounts. And I think that Staples even gives you like a personal manager or something that you can talk to. I haven't really used that yet, but that would be my tip in terms of shipping supplies and in terms of your pricing. Just always absorb it somehow. Yeah. Because shipping will forever be expensive. It's insane.
Can I make one more suggestion for packaging supplies? It's going to be real quick. Just what you said, Fiona, about ordering certain amounts of things made me realize that it's actually very popular to go in on shipping supplies with other makers. So if something has like minimum quantities that are like kind of inaccessible to you, or if you think that, you know, you don't need 100 mailers, but maybe someone else, you know, needs 100 mailers, like you can put a big order in and just split it with all of your friends. That's a very like easy, like low risk way to like test things and also not, you know, have a bunch of stuff sitting around. So that's, I think that's a useful way to kind of use your network a little bit.
Oh yeah, same thing with shipping accounts. I know that UPS or like FedEx, if you want to open an account, I can't remember how much it costs, but someone else did say that take on the cost with someone else. So you and I can open an account together and we'll share the cost and we'll both be able to take advantage of using the account. So definitely share costs among your network.
Are you going to add something to that, Rachel?
Yeah, you just kind of just touched on it, Fiona. I would say look outside of Canada Post too, because there's UPS, Purolator, FedEx, they all have different rates. Most of my customers are actually based in the US, and I have found Chit Chats. It's like a smaller private thing they're based in Quebec. And I found their rates to be a lot better when I'm shipping to the US. So anytime I ship to the US, I use Chit Chats, and then everything else, I usually use Canada Post, but just shop around for different rates as well.
So again, being transparent about our zine experience, we learned the hard way to not show the shipping costs on our website. But we still sold out in less than 3 days, so we're very happy about that. So it's not a lie that social media has a big place whenever it comes to selling. Interesting to know, like, do you think that social media helped the success of your shops that you have right now? And I'll start with you, Rachel.
100%. I'm like totally addicted to Instagram. Like always on it, but I posted a lot of my like personal design work, like random illustrations there, and I think that's how I got it's how I got into like making an online shop, but that's also just like where a lot of people come from. So I think Instagram is great for me, and also great for me finding other illustrators and whatnot. I spend a lot of time on it. I actually just started using TikTok, and like, to be totally honest, I was like so against it because I just didn't know anything about it. But TikTok is amazing. Like the content there is so cool. People just take videos of them packaging and they get insane views. I'm really, really impressed with like how creative people get on TikTok. So yeah, I do think it's huge. Yeah.
Maybe we should get a TikTok account as the Ottawa Design Club. That would be so much to manage though. What about you, Alex? You have an insane amount of followers.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Instagram has been really, really important to me. I never dreamed that it would be as important to me as it is now. It's a very, very significant part of my job. Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, the only reason I started it was for me to just kind of get my work out there and show the sketches I was working on. And then, you know, things really developed from there. But one thing I find about Instagram is that I have to be really intentional with how I use it, because I find that like all of these apps, they're designed to just like keep you there and to just keep you scrolling. And I think I mentioned this last time, but like one thing that's really helpful for me and is something I really swear by is I actually set a timer when I use Instagram. Like I usually about 30 minutes to an hour every day. And like during that time, I make it a point of like commenting on people's work, sharing people's work, maybe promoting if I have like a shop update or talking about projects that I'm doing. I find that like being really mindful and present when I'm using Instagram has been very helpful. And it's also been a really great way for me to network, because the act of like, not just sharing your work, but sharing other people's work. And especially, I would highly recommend sharing the work of other artists that you see who maybe don't have the audience that you think they deserve. Like sharing, your friend's artwork who maybe has like, under 1,000 followers or something. Like it's such a great way to build karma in the community and to highlight all of the amazing stuff that's going on there. And I think that me putting all the energy into like community building on my Instagram profile has led to like, more eyes on my work, I guess. And, in addition to, obviously I've been really fortunate with the opportunities that I've had and, doing in-person events. All of that has helped a lot. Yeah, so social media, at least for me personally, has been huge for my business.
And Fiona, like same thing for you, I assume.
Yes. I opened my Instagram account in 2017, but I feel like we had more of an advantage back then because the algorithm wasn't as mean as it is today. Instagram algorithm is like, just does not want you to succeed. That's my theory. But back in the day, so yeah, I opened up my Instagram and I found that the organic traffic, it wasn't as hard to get that reach, to get in front of people. The order was, chronological order. It wasn't just scattered, so you actually saw what people were posting. But I mean, till this day, Instagram is still a powerhouse. You just have to know how to use it. And there's a lot of like rules and theories that go around like hashtagging and stories versus reels and blah, blah, blah. But like the thing is, once a platform introduces something new, jump on it. So when stories became a thing, you should jump on stories. When IGTV was a thing, when reels became a thing, there's reels where I would not even put any effort into and I would get like 5,000 views. And then something where I was trying to edit and make it look all cute and perfect got barely half of that. So what I noticed with reels is people like the authentic content where like the spur of the moment, hey, I'm packaging orders, pick up my phone, do a cute little reel, throw on a song on it, and people will watch that kind of stuff. Same thing with TikTok. And I actually, just like Rachel, I'm starting to get into TikTok because unlike Instagram, TikTok is way more relaxed. It's way more chill. Like you don't have to make your content perfect. It doesn't have to be color coded. It doesn't have to be pretty. You don't have to be pretty. You can literally wake up and make a TikTok. But so TikTok is raw. And I love that about it. And like Rachel said, you could literally just be fulfilling orders and someone will watch it and you'll get a ton of views. It's not always just dance videos. TikTok has become way more than that. Go on TikTok, just type in artist talk or small business, and you'll just find a bunch. They even give you ideas on what to post as a business, as an artist. And it's a matter of just getting inspiration on there. And then another social media that we should not neglect is Facebook. Facebook is amazing when it comes to groups. Once you can get into some of those groups, you literally have a sea of knowledge for free. Like no one is trying to sell you anything, like their services, their ebooks. No, they're just there. You get in, you ask a question, and you'll get a bunch of answers. Finding the groups is a bit hard sometimes because there's some groups that barely post, barely get any action, bogus, the follow for follow groups. Like, no, don't do any of those. Don't do the like, hey guys, if 10 people follow me, I'll follow you. Like, no, don't do those. Do the groups where they're literally there to help each other grow. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I could probably give Isabel and Ariane some of the Facebook groups I'm in, especially for like Etsy. Now that I'm thinking of getting back into Etsy, there's an amazing Etsy Facebook group where I've been able to just ask questions, or when I wake up in the morning, I'll just read other people's questions and the answers, because it could be the same questions that I have. Or you can just search through the group and find a post from like 2017 that answers your question. So Facebook groups are definitely gold mines. And TikTok is a gold mine to jump on as well. And Instagram is just nice to have because it's a visual platform. Oh my God, and Pinterest. Pinterest is also, I know this is a lot of platforms, but they all do something different for your brand. So with Pinterest, it's a super visual platform, but it's more so it's not about pretty things. Like, yes, it's about pretty things, but it's about education. So you have the Pinterest is where you're able to educate your customers on your products. So so for art, like I sell wall art. So you make a nice little Pinterest graphic where it's like how to create the ultimate gallery wall that's trending right now. Creating gallery walls in your living room, you know, make that a blog article, make that a newsletter, make it pin back to your website, because you're giving people knowledge. People seek knowledge. They want to learn new things. Teach them how to make a frame by going to the dollar store for the art print that they just bought from you. So it's super easy. You can get tons of topic ideas. There's another website where you can figure out what the kind of questions that people ask, and that could give you an idea for a topic in terms of how to answer it as well. So I know I'm rambling, but I do think that having a blog or some sort of newsletter is also a good way to sell yourself without selling yourself, because people don't always want to get sale emails, promotion emails, you know, that gets overdone, that gets tiring. So write blog posts, write articles where you're selling, but you're not selling.
Yeah. People love process and they love behind the scenes. And I think a newsletter is a really great way to do that. I've been trying to do a newsletter for ages. Maybe 2021 will be the year. But yeah, people love knowing what you're up to behind the scenes. Like what does the day-to-day life of an artist look like? Like you said, packaging, sketches, process videos, that kind of stuff always gets a lot of engagement, I find.
And I think that repetition is a good thing too, right? Like you send out a newsletter, you announce something, you feature something else, but then on other channels like Instagram, TikTok, like you repeat that day. If you have like a special day of like a sale or you're launching something new, repeat it. Even if you think that you're repeating yourself, repeat it. Because again, the algorithm may not necessarily show it. I attended a webinar and they said if you have a launch or a sale that's coming out, promote for every day. And if you can, even like multiple times a day, like for a month before, repeat the date, repeat the time. And we tested out with the zine and it worked out for us. So no piece of advice. Again, touching on the zine. Mm-hmm. But thank you so much for like answering all those questions. Like mind blown. Like I don't know, you guys in the chat are like fired up, and we have 15 minutes to like ask like the audience questions, and we had a couple ones like in the chat. We also want to invite you, like the audience, to ask their question in person. So if you want to take the stage, just like you know, say something in the chat and we'll unmute you. So we had a question, and I just have to go back about printers. Like, do you have some go-to printers for prints, for apparel, for screen printing? So who's your go-to locally? And anyone, please jump.
I have a few. Depends on the printer. So like if I'm talking about like paper prints, in Ottawa, like Loudmouth is great. If you want a bit more like specialized things like foil and whatnot. If you want like quick things, like for clients, like say I'm printing like a ton of menus, the printing house is great. My man Rich from Flash Reproductions in Etobicoke is like, he does literally everything, and he's my favorite person in the world. So it's not Ottawa local, but he can do everything: screen printing, embossing, like debossing, like book binding, whatnot. So that's where I go for my paper printing. If I do apparel, it depends on who I want to work with. Usually I try to seek out like actual merchants, not really manufacturers. Like, so if you guys are familiar with like brands like Cotton and whatnot, or like it depends on the client and what their ask is, but like if even like Raised by Wolves, like I try to give money back to a small business. So like when I want apparel, I'll seek out like specific vendors, like X company makes these hats, I'm going to go to them. Like Cotton has really nice t-shirts, I'm going to go to like their clothing business. So that's who I go for apparel.
So locally, Rachel actually mentioned two of the ones I go to. So Loudmouth and the Printing House on Albert Street. They're really good for paper prints. And for apparel and some of my paper prints too, I go to Carlos Graphics in the Byward Market. He's kind of hidden, but it's, what's that store? Anyway, if you look up, he has a sign. People barely look up, but yeah, just Google. So Carlos Graphics, he does some of my apparel as well. He does my screen printing and my DTG, my direct to garment apparel printing. But when I got more adventurous with my apparel line, my fashion line, when I made the dresses and the bodysuit and the tote bag, I went to Alibaba. So I used a China vendor. So I went through Alibaba for the more like specific, and because they're literally building it from scratch. They're literally sewing the dress how I wanted it. So for that, I had to go overseas. I went to Alibaba for that. And who else do I use? And yeah, I'm gonna explore print on demand, because you can also print apparels with print on demand. So there's Printful and there's Printify. And how they work is, for example, Printify has a bunch of suppliers that they use. So Printify is located in the US, and they do have suppliers in the US or in Europe. So for example, if you want to get into international shipping and you want to focus on Europe, then you would use the supplier from Printify that's located in Europe to do your printing, so that when they ship, they're just shipping within Europe, and it's obviously more cost effective. So Printify is really good. I don't know what other countries their printers are in. I've just only focused on the US. So that's a good print on demand company to check out as well. There's also Printful. They're also a print on demand. And yeah, that's all for me for local and online and overseas.
Yeah, so for me, I haven't, my Etsy shop is currently closed. I'm kind of planning a shop update, so I haven't really been ordering much lately, but previously for my stickers, I would really recommend Stickerism. They're based in Montreal. So in fact, I think it's one of the only places that does like, or at least that I found really nice, like die cut stickers that isn't like in the US or overseas. So surprisingly difficult to find like really good sticker printers, but Stickerism in Montreal is really, really wonderful. So far, I've been really happy with the quality. For printing, I was going to Qatari Imaging on Elgin Street. They do digital prints. I haven't been back in a while, but I've been really happy with the quality of their prints, and their prices are really good. And they have a lot of different cardstock, which I like. The prints are nice and thick. Like the quality is really nice in my opinion. What else do I use? So I have also done like tote bags and enamel pins in the past. And for those, I go to Press Time Design. They're based in Welland, so not super local, but still within Ontario. And I've had really great experiences with them. They're very professional, very friendly. I think they all used to be like in a band together or something, and now they have like a screen printing business. So they're very, very cool. They take on a lot of really cool work. So yeah, would recommend them for like screen printing, apparel, enamel pins. I think they do embroidery as well. Yeah, and then I think that's pretty much it. And then as far as like home printing, I have a Canon Pixma Pro 100 printer that I use, and for my small prints, it's really, really wonderful. I do my thank you notes with it. I do a lot of like, sometimes I'll do my business cards, I'll do like one-off test prints, limited runs, and that kind of thing. So yeah, having your own printer, if you can make it work for you, I highly recommend it.
Oh, and don't sleep on Vistaprint. Vistaprint sometimes has some really good sales for business cards, for example. I've gotten like 70% off of like 500 business cards before because of Vistaprint. So maybe just join like their mailing list so you can just stay up to date with their sale emails. So that's a really quick go-to as well. And I remembered another one. I personally haven't used it, but it's called Art of Wear. They're located in Montreal. I believe they do screen printing, if I'm not mistaken. So that's also someone else to consider, just keeping it Canadian, keeping it local.
Awesome. I hope everyone took notes. So Andy asks that Andy says basically that everything seems like maybe a lot to manage and to keep on top of everything. What tips do you guys have for managing your time? Any tools that you see essential? We can start with Rachel.
So much. Like I do a lot with my day job and then like freelance and whatnot. Like this is going to be like such a boring answer, but Google Calendar is like my best friend. So like that keeps me up to date, and like you can schedule, like you can color code it. So like this is my like 9 to 5 job, and then after this I have client work and then whatnot. So it's not, maybe not like the most fun answer, but like Google Calendar is great. Calendly is great. Like I do some mentoring as well, or like also talk with other people. So you can like send people your schedule and whatnot. So if people want to chat with you, you can use Calendly to book appointments and whatnot. But I think those are my 2 things for managing time. And like in terms of managing projects, I use a ton of software. If you're familiar with Asana, I use that for project management. I use Dropbox for like holding all my files and whatnot. Yeah, but me and Google Calendar are good friends.
Yeah, I agree about Asana. Asana is pretty good for project management. And I also suggest the Pomodoro method. So, you know, we live in a world where we're on our phones all the time, even when we have to be working, and I'm guilty of that. So with this method is you do 25 minutes of straight work uninterrupted, and then you get 10 minutes off. So you can get like a quick fix of Instagram in 10 minutes, do your scrolling, do what you have to do. Hey, reply, you're still working on Instagram. I feel like I'm always working on Instagram. You're replying customer messages, you're doing research from other posts that you come across. So do some of that mindless scrolling, or, you know, I don't know, go eat, relax, and then go back to work for another 25 minutes. So it kind of like disciplines you, where you kind of reward yourself for getting that 25 minutes. And it sounds so childish, but I need to reward myself like that. So even if that means working for 25 minutes and then going to grab a snack, that's my reward for getting 25 minutes straight of work, especially with like lockdowns too, right? Like you're at home. It's different like when I'm at my desk where I'm actually in the work environment, but at home I can easily distract myself with, even if it's going to do laundry. Like I'd rather do laundry than work sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. So it helps when you're home to just kind of reward yourself for the little bit of productivity that you're able to get. And then that way you're also not burning out, because it got to a point where I had no work-life balance. So I was just constantly working because it's your baby, it's your business, you know, and you want everything to be perfect, and you have your eyes on everything, you're doing everything. It got to the point where I had to come up for air, and I was like, whoa, okay, I have no life anymore. I need to just step back and like put do not disturb at like 6 p.m. on my phone, for example. If you see an email coming, actually on your home screen on your phone, I would put like the email app or like the Instagram and TikTok apps on the second page, because I'm the type of person, if I see that red 1 or 2 showing that I got an incoming message, I have to check it right there and then. So putting it on the second page is also kind of like dismissing it almost. Then that way you tell yourself, okay, it's 6 p.m. do not disturb. I will answer the email in the morning. And with emails too, it's like it was sent at 5 p.m. Yes, you can answer it at 5:05 p.m., but the person who sent it will probably not even check it till tomorrow anyway. So I just really had to discipline myself like that. It's like, okay, not everything needs to be answered at once. Set your work hours, set your work breaks, and don't burn out.
Yep, exactly. I didn't know that was called the Pomodoro method because I do that as well. I just didn't know it had a name. My time split, I do 50-10. So I do 50 minutes and then 10-minute break and then 50-10. I find it extremely useful. I don't know what it is about having those firm boundaries that my brain really likes, but that's the reason why I suggest using a timer when you use social media. That's like kind of built into the way that I do my workflow. Because if I don't set a firm boundary around it, I'll just doom scroll forever, especially nowadays. So yeah, setting timers is so important. I'm a really big fan of bullet journaling. you guys are all talking about really cool apps that I have never heard of and I should probably look into. I'm very much like a paper pencil person. So I have it here, but like I have a book that I use and I have like my own coding system that I use. Like there's different like shapes and colors for all of the tasks I need to do in the day. And I find it really helpful. I also really love it because it's not a screen and it's not another portal for me to get sucked into something. So I'm really strict about, I try not to check my phone until noon every day. I don't even look at it. My mornings are like sacred. Like I'll get a bit of work done, but I really try to like fill my cup with things like reading and taking it slow. And if I have an email or, you know, unless I have a meeting or something, but if there isn't anything urgent, I will not even like look at my emails or my social media. I'll sit down with my planner with no screens and kind of plan my day. Yeah, I think like, you know, the thesis of all of this is that it's really important to set boundaries around your work time and your leisure time, especially because all of that is so enmeshed right now with social media, because so much of our work is tied up in social media. It's like, you need to set boundaries. So I find, yeah, having a paper planner is really great for me and using timers like all the time.
So we have time for one last question, and like we're getting out of time. So one to two sentence for that answer. So, and it's like the best one it's like an inspirational question to finish on. So if you could give yourself one piece of advice from back when you started, what would it be? And I'll start with Rachel.
I would say like have fun with it. Enjoy the process. Like I know you're probably getting so much information thrown at you, and you don't know it until you're in it. But like, you know what? Things can change. Like I changed my packaging. I changed this. I changed my design. I changed my store, and like people don't notice. Like people honestly don't notice. Like I put so much thought into like changing X, Y, and Z and like agonizing over it. But in the end, like it's not a big deal. Like don't agonize over it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And like, you know what, if your prices are too high, change it. If you think your prices are too low, change it. And I know that sounds like, you know, like easier said than done. But I think for myself, I put a lot of pressure on myself, but like it's enjoy the process, and it's always going to be a learning process.
I love that. Like nothing is set in stone. You can always go back and revisit. Mm-hmm. So I see you going like this, Alex.
Yeah. So mine would be, if I could go back in time, I would say something that I still believe today, which is make the art that you want to make. There's a lot of pressure to be designing things for algorithms, and don't do that. Because if you do that, the problem is if you start designing based on things that you think are popular, you might get pigeonholed into like an area that you don't necessarily want to do. And like, that can be really hard because obviously you're seeing other artists maybe who do a design challenge or who do like a draw this in your style or something like that. And maybe they're getting a lot of feedback, but like, don't feel like you have to do those things. I know it sounds really corny. It's like a platitude you probably hear all the time, but it's 100% true. Make the art that feels honest to you and make art that's like in alignment with your values. And yeah, that feels true. Oh, God, that sounds really wishy-washy, but I really do. I really do.
But it's so important to remind ourselves that, because I find that as designers, there's so much pressure to fit in a mold, and especially with Instagram, it's like, you know, like, and sometimes it's like you don't allow yourself to explore because you want to look a certain way, but exploring is okay. You know, defining your style takes time, and maybe we can have another panel on that itself, your style. But yeah. What about you, Fiona? Your last words, you're closing the panel.
No, I definitely agree with Alex. Stay in your lane. Like, just stay in your lane, because honestly, like, it's a gold mine. Because with me, my art style is doodling. So doodling is something you used to do as a kid, right? Or something you do mindlessly when you're bored at work. But my art style literally came from me doodling as a kid and doodling because I was bored at work. So I stayed in my lane of doodling, and with time, it just became its own thing. And the one thing that everyone always says when they see my artwork is like, oh, it's so unique. I've never seen this before. And I would take that over, you know, looking like every other artist on Instagram, right? So that's definitely one of my unique selling, my value selling proposition for sure. And one thing I would probably do different is I probably would have started sooner. If I had known, like I definitely let it's definitely like self-sabotage and like got in my own way for sure. So I definitely would have started sooner if I hadn't been as scared, because no one ever really knows what they're doing, ever. Everyone just, I mean, Google is free. Everyone just relies on Google. Everyone relies on their network, on their community, and everyone relies on just fear. Like I used fear as my propeller, basically. Like the event I told you about, that I was invited to the very first time, I was scared. I actually said no the first time, and it's my mom who literally pushed me. So again, use fear as your, like, the gas that just like pumps you up. And yeah, it's all cliches, but it's the truth. It's honestly the truth.
No, but what a great way to end this conversation. Like, use fear as your fuel. So guys, like, put that on a piece of paper, put it on the wall. Like, if you need that motivator, just like look at that and remember, like the Ottawa Design Club said this, right? So we want to say a huge thank you for all that valuable knowledge that was shared tonight. I want to unmute everyone, and I actually want to clap. It was amazing. Can we do this? Like, can we?
I did it, everybody.
Oh yeah, okay, clap.
Yay!
Thank you.
That was great. So please, we'll send you a follow-up MailChimp, everybody, and please follow Fiona, Alex, and Rachel. Their feed is killer. And follow us too to know what's next. You know, that we just mentioned about a celebration, maybe we're not sure yet. but yeah, it was great to see everyone. And on that, sweet dreams, and we hope that you'll dream in color after all this. Inspiration to its max.
Exactly. We can't wait to buy all of your products, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And send it to us whenever it's ready. Send it to us. We'll share it on our platform too, right? It's about building that community.
I'll
So,
share it too. Send me whatever.
Yeah, totally, please.
there you go.
Don't be
thank you so
shy.
much. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.